6:30 in the morning on September 2nd, 2025, with a single target. A Venezuelan speedboat tearing across the Caribbean Sea at full throttle, carrying armed men who thought they were running just another smuggling trip. But the ocean around them had already become a cage. From above, the sky wasn't empty. American satellites were staring down, their thermal sensors picking up the boat's exhaust trail like a glowing arrow. Thousands of miles away, analysts were tracking its every move in real time. What the crew thought was freedom of open water was, in reality, already closing in. At 25,000 feet, a U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon reconnaissance jet circled, its powerful radar slicing through clouds, painting the boat's position with mathematical precision. Bursts back to Caracas weren't private anymore. The Poseidon was listening and feeding it all into the Navy's combat web. And on the horizon, just a speck at first, came the silhouette of an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. 9,000 tons of American steel, bristling with missiles, and to the smugglers it was invisible. To the U.S. Navy, the boat's fate was already sealed. What looked like just another smuggler's run was about to become something very different, a global incident. Because by the end of that day, that boat would be destroyed. Caracas would the world would watch the U.S. Navy sink a cartel-linked vessel in international waters. And that lesson would be brutal. Escape was never possible. The smugglers didn't know it, but from the very moment their boat throttled up, they had entered a kill box. The term sounds dramatic, but in U.S. Navy doctrine, it's brutally simple. Once a target crosses into a mapped sector, multiple layers of escape is mathematically impossible. That's what the Venezuelan boat had just stumbled into. High above, satellites weren't just taking pictures. They were tracking heat signatures, electronic chatter, even the faint trail of hydrocarbons in the exhaust. The second the boat's engine screamed, the data stacked higher. The smugglers thought they were fast. In truth, they're top. The next layer was the P-8 Poseidon. Now, don't think of this as just an aircraft. It's a flying command post. Its AN/APY-10 radar can sweep hundreds of miles of ocean in a single, detecting vessels as small as a skiff. The crew of the Poseidon didn't just mark the boat, they shadowed it. Whenever the smugglers changed course, quietly keeping the target inside its electronic crosshairs. And the Poseidon wasn't just watching it, it was listening. Every radio call back to Venezuela, every encrypted burst was intercepted and tagged, already being archived on U.S. servers before their message even finished transmitting. Meanwhile, the surface trap closed in. An Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, in this case one of the most advanced guided missile warships afloat, was maneuvering into position. To casualize, it was just a dot on the horizon. But beneath that steel deck sat 96 vertical launch cells capable of unleashing everything from surface-to-air missiles to land attack tomahawks. Against a drug boat, well, that was overkill. But the destroyer carried more than missiles. Its AN/SPY-1 radar system, part of the Aegis combat suite, was quietly feeding positional data to every allied ship and aircraft in range. Smugglers weren't being hunted by one ship. They were caught in a network. That network is the real meaning of surrounded. Not a ring of vessels visible on the water, but an invisible web of overlapping surveillance, weapons, and coordination. The boat could turn north, south, or try to sprint westward towards Venezuelan waters. It didn't matter. Every heading was already plotted, every potential escape vector covered. When the order came down, it wasn't dramatic. No shouted warnings, no last-minute chase. The Poseidon destroyer's Combat Information Center acknowledged. Fire control radars aligned, and in a moment the smugglers never saw coming, precision strike turned their fiberglass hull into burning wreckage. The boat was destroyed in seconds. Escape was impossible. Commanders, the operation was a textbook success. For the smugglers, there had never been a chance. The ocean they thought gave them freedom had, in reality, become a cage built of steel. Within hours, Washington declared the mission a counter-narcotics success. The target, they said, wasn't just a random smuggler's boat. It was directly tied to Tren de Aragua, Venezuela's most powerful criminal network. According to the White House, the boat was carrying cartel operatives and narcotics bound for regional distribution. U.S. officials claimed the strike eliminated 11 suspected cartel operatives in international waters. But while U.S. officials spoke of success, the reaction elsewhere was explosive. In Caracas, Nicolas Maduro called it outright aggression. He argued the men on board were Venezuelan citizens killed without trial, their destruction a violation of sovereignty and international law. The strike quickly jumped from the headlines about drugs to debates about legitimacy. Allies stayed quiet, but analysts noted the risks. If every major power claimed the right to sink boats on suspicion alone, international waters could turn into free fire zones. For the Navy, it was a clean kill, and for the watching world, it was a dangerous precedent with consequences far beyond a single burning boat. From the outside, the strike looked like a blunt force act of power. A Navy destroyer wiping out a drug boat in seconds. The U.S. Navy but more than just a burning hull. Think about it. The smugglers had made radio calls to their handlers in Venezuela. Ops had plotted and carried equipment. All of that was intercepted, recorded, and tagged. The Navy didn't just erase a boat. They mapped part of the Tren de Aragua's logistic every network. Voice on the radio, every frequency used, every voice timing pattern. It all went straight into U.S. databases. The next time one of those voices pops up, recognize it instantly. The same goes for tactics. Smugglers react when shadowed by aircraft. Which routes do they prefer in daylight versus at night? Do they run straight for Venezuelan waters when pressured? Or do they try to hide among commercial traffic? The answer gives each answer more tools to predict and corner the next run. In military terms, this is called pattern of life intelligence, and it's priceless. It's not the first time U.S. forces has flipped intimidation or aggression into a Venezuelan F-16s later buzzed the USS Jason Dunham. They're quietly logged their radar signatures and comms, turning a dangerous flyby into an intelligence windfall. These Z-10 helicopters tried to rattle U.S. patrols in the South China Sea. They gave away their electronic fingerprints for free. Even the Houthis, firing shoulder-launched missiles in the Red Sea, exposed the infrared plumes of their systems. Intel the Navy stored for future fights. That's the hidden gem. The smugglers believed that they were testing luck on the high seas. In reality, they were unwitting participants in a surveillance operation far larger than themselves, the fight. The smugglers' boat destruction didn't stay a tactical footnote either across a political landscape. Within hours of the strike, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro appeared on state television, fists clenched, accusing Washington of murder. He called the attack a violation of sovereignty and vowed retaliation, telling his people that America had crossed a red line. For a country already under heavy and in deep economic crisis, the incident became fuel for nationalist fire and troops marching through coastal garrisons. To domestic audiences as defiant, Venezuela would not be intimidated. Air Force was aging, its fleet of U.S.-made F-16s was badly in need of parts, and its Navy destroyers prowling just offshore. Caracas couldn't meet Washington head-on, but it could play a dangerous game of provocation. The game unfolded just 3 days later. 2 Venezuelan F-16s roared low over the USS Jason Dunham. They're operating in international waters. The Dunham Pentagon sailors watched the jet scream by at altitudes so low that their shock waves rippled across the water. It was a gift. Every radar pulse, every radio call from those jets was vacuumed up, cataloged, and stored, turning intimidation into raw intelligence. But the danger of escalation was real. The Navy had standing orders. Yet in a world where supersonic fighters close distance in seconds, the line between provocation and attack can blur fast. One miss into an opening shot of a war. Washington responded in kind. Not with restraint, but with reinforcements. Within a week, 10 F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters deployed to Puerto Rico, just barely a 2-hour flight from Venezuelan airspace. These weren't relics from the 1980s like Caracas's F-16s. They were America's crown jewel. Fifth-generation aircraft designed to dismantle enemy defenses before they even knew it was being targeted. The message was unmistakable. If Venezuela wanted to gamble in the skies, the U.S. was ready to raise the stakes. The ripple effects spread even further. Regional governments from Colombia to the island watched nervously as the Caribbean filled with American warships and combat patrols. Diplomats in Washington warned that one destroyed speedboat had become a flashpoint, threatening to destabilize the whole hemisphere. What began as a counter-narcotic strike against a single cartel-linked boat had morphed into a confrontation between the Caribbean Sea into the stage for a new Cold War standoff. By the end of that first week of September of 2025, the Caribbean Sea looked the same. Blue water, rolling waves, merchant ships on the horizon. But beneath the calm, the balance of power had shifted. A single speedboat, packed with smugglers who thought they were untouchable, had dragged Venezuela and the United States into a dangerous new standoff. For the U.S. Navy, it became a proving ground. Patrol aircraft and destroyers worked in silent coordination, showing how modern warfare doesn't rely on dramatic chases or warning shots. Data relies on precision that leaves no room for escape. That boat was never just a boat. It was a signal, a test, and a trigger. For Caracas, the incident was humiliation dressed as defiance. Maduro could roar on television, buzz American warships, but none of it changed the reality. Venezuela's into American database to project strength only exposed more weaknesses. So here's my question to you. What do you think of this? Was the U.S. right to strike, or has this escalated way too far in Caracas? Let me know in the comments. I'm really curious to see how you see it. And thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like if you enjoyed this breakdown and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And, as always, if you want to take it a step further and support our channel directly, please join the fleet. You get loyalty badges.
Channel Rapid Fire News. Please subscribe and like my videos because today we are diving into one of the most shocking and chaotic events in the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. Now, it felt like the city itself had turned into a battlefield, a living hell. To understand the scale, the impact, and the symbolism of this unprecedented strike, we will review this event as if we are looking at it the way we might review a complex piece. The interior, the performance, the safety features, the unique selling points, price, and finally a conclusion about what it means for the future of this conflict and the global stage. When you look at the exterior of this ambush, the first impression is massive and terrifying. Dozens upon dozens of drones filled the night sky as a collective force. The skyline of Moscow, with its iconic towers and its government buildings, suddenly had a new visual backdrop: the glowing trails of incoming Ukrainian drones and the flashes of Russian air defense systems firing back. The exterior scene alone was enough to cause panic. Cars stopped in the streets, people rushed to shelters, and alarms rang across the city. It was not only a strike on a location, but also on the psychology of an entire population. The exterior look of this strike defined the very essence of modern warfare: cheap but effective drones overwhelming one of the most heavily defended capitals in the world. But when we go into the interior, the details inside this strike become even more significant. The interior is not about what was seen in the sky, but about the planning, the technology, and the execution that made it possible. Inside, Ukraine's strategy was a clear objective: to push past Russian defenses not with 1 or 2 drones, but with nearly 100. That kind of saturation attack tests the limits of even advanced air defense systems like Russia's Pantsir and S-400 platforms. On the interior level, this was not random chaos, but a carefully calculated operation. Citizens who had once believed in the untouchable security of their city suddenly realized that even the capital could be vulnerable. The interior of the event also reveals something about the drones themselves. Many of these drones are inexpensive, sometimes costing only a few $1,000s, yet when launched in large numbers, their interior engineering becomes a nightmare for defenders. The planning behind the attack was designed to maximize shock value as much as physical destruction. Inside every buzzing engine and every flight path was the message: Ukraine can strike deep inside Russian territory and Moscow is no longer safe. The performance of this drone ambush must be analyzed with care. On a purely military level, performance is judged by results. How many drones reached their targets, how many were intercepted, and what impact they had on infrastructure and morale. Reports suggest that Russian air defense managed to shoot down many of the incoming drones. Explosions lit up the skies as surfaced, where missiles collided with their targets. Yet even with those defenses, some drones penetrated, striking areas of the city and setting off fires. Performance here is not only about destruction, but about how well the attack delivered its intended message. In terms of performance, this strike succeeded in overwhelming defenses. The fact that such a large-scale drone operation was possible at all shows that Ukraine has mastered not only the technology, but also the coordination required for synchronized strikes. On the Russian side, the performance of their defenses was mixed. Damage was limited. The psychological performance of the strike was immense. The world now sees that Moscow is not impenetrable, and that is perhaps the most significant result. Safety features in this context sound almost ironic, but they are vital to explore. Drones, in theory, have no safety features for the targets they are aimed at. They are designed to explode, to cause destruction, but on another level, the safety features relate to how Russia protects its capital. Moscow is ringed with some of the most advanced air defense systems in the world. Anti-aircraft batteries, electronic jammers, and radar arrays create a dome intended to safeguard the city. Yet what we witnessed was that safety features can fail under the stress of mass attacks. Dozens of drones tested every angle, every response time, every radar signal. Russia's safety features worked in part. Many drones were intercepted, but they did not prevent all of them. For the residents, the lack of total protection shattered confidence. For Ukraine, the safety feature of drones is the fact that they do not put pilots or crews at risk. A drone can be lost, but no Ukrainian soldier dies in the process. That asymmetry in safety is one of the key features of modern drone warfare. It reduces risks for the attacker while forcing the defender to spend expensive missiles and resources to shoot them down. Unique selling points of this strike make it unlike any other. The first unique element is the sheer scale. 93 drones at once is unprecedented in this conflict. Another unique point is the target itself. Moscow is not a frontline city. It is the political heart of Russia, the symbol of power, and striking it has enormous significance. A third unique point is cost-effectiveness. Each drone may cost a few $1,000s, but to shoot them down, Russia must use missiles that may cost hundreds of thousands each. That imbalance is a unique advantage for Ukraine. Another selling point is the psychological reach. The attack proves to Russians that nowhere is truly safe, even in the capital. $100,000 total to produce and launch these drones. On the Russian side, the cost of defending against them may have run into the millions. Each missile fired to intercept a drone is expensive. Each hour of radar and defense operations burns resources. On the civilian side, the price was fear, disruption, and in some cases, damage to homes or infrastructure. Flights at Moscow's airports were delayed, businesses were interrupted, and normal life was suspended. For the Russian government, the political price was even higher. Admitting that Moscow was under such a massive attack shakes the image of control that the Kremlin tries to maintain. For Ukraine, the price was far less in material terms, but the risk of escalation is always present. Each attack raises the stakes, and the price of provoking further retaliation may be felt in Ukrainian cities later. The balance of price versus impact, however, seems to favor Ukraine, at least in terms of strategic messaging. In conclusion, this ambush of 93 Ukrainian drones over Moscow marks a turning point in the war's narrative. It showed that a swarm of low-cost machines can challenge the might of one of the world's most advanced militaries in its own capital. From the exterior look of the attack, a terrifying sky filled with buzzing drones, to the interior planning and execution, the performance of the assault was undeniable. Safety features on both sides were tested, and unique selling points like cost-effectiveness and psychological impact made this strike stand out.